a big about-face of the president from 72 hours ago, but we're following it as well here. The markets are really jumping on that, on this notion that the president's back in the game, back with big stimulus, wants to do a deal, and the expectation is that a deal can be done. Now, prior to this development, of course, you heard from Mitch McConnell that he doubted any deal could be done in the next 3 weeks, that is, ahead of the election. Be that as it may, stocks are jumping on this development. Should they? Let's go to Gary Kaltbaum and Mattie Duppler. Mattie with the National Taxpayers Union. Mattie, I do want to talk a little bit about what would be the ultimate cost of this. No one's looking at deficits anymore or debt. I get that. But if the president was always on board something more generous, and this is more generous, could that close the deal? In other words, does that mean a deal is more likely when he himself has sort of upped the price tag on it?
Well, Neil, my organization, National Taxpayers Union, has been saying for months what a silly negotiating tactic it is to be talking about top-line numbers. What if, go on a walk with me down memory lane, we had lawmakers who thought about the impact of their policy rather than whether or not they were spending too much or too little. That's why we're in the situation we're in to begin with, and why deficits and spending are so out of control is because members of Congress are talking about the price tag rather than the effect this relief could have. I think it's very important that Congress does continue to support the economy. We're in very uncertain times here. But whether or not you're spending $1 trillion or $2 trillion should depend on what you're getting for that $1 trillion and $2 trillion and whether that money is being spent well. There's a lot of stuff that was in the CARES Act that the Congress passed in the spring that really made sense. Things like PPP that provided small business loans, things like ERTC, which allowed small businesses to keep their employees on payroll and get a tax cut as a result of that. That's the kind of support that we can be talking about that gives taxpayers more bang for their buck. Nancy Pelosi, of course, has been demanding $500 billion for state and local economies when you've got some states that have actually managed their budgets as well enough that revenues are coming in ahead of expectations. So, my hope is that there is a deal here to be had. My hope is that it's not just a bunch of spending thrown at a problem when targeted relief could really make an impact here.
Well, we don't know. To that point, Gary, we do know that Wall Street, which used to be this great laissez-faire, institution, keep the government out, that is, unless their heinies are on the line, is celebrating this. Now, how long, we don't know. But what we do know enough where there's agreement among the parties is on these stimulus checks, airline relief, maybe unemployment benefits, probably not as generous as the $600 a week we had at the height of the pandemic, but something close. What do you think? If that was just the primary components, what do you think?
Look, I've been saying we need some more of this, and you know me, I'm a debt and deficit hawk. There are just moments in time where you just got to take care of people by no fault of theirs. And as I keep saying, yesterday, airline traffic, people going through TSA, 25% of what it was last year. And airlines cannot continue to stay in business with those type of numbers. We also have tens of thousands of small businesses shutting down, and you still have 8, 9, 10 million, depending on which abacus you use, unemployed. So a bridge definitely needs to be done. It's good to see the president woke up and said, hey, the Dow's down 500 points on my no negotiations deal. So good to see something, but nothing's done just yet. We still haven't seen the fine print, right. But I suspect we'll be in the $2 trillion range. And, we talked debt and deficits. That horse left the barn many years ago. The train left the station many years ago. We were 25 trillion before the pandemic, and I don't know how we're ever going to be able to roll that back.
I'm just wondering where this goes then, Mattie. One thing that's very clear here, and it's rather remarkable, is the 180 the president has done in a little more than 72 hours, from nixing all talks because they were a waste of time, to now let's go in deep on this. If you're negotiating with him, it's got to be a little bit confusing here, or maybe it's all part of the art of the deal and there's a strategy here. If so, it's missed on me. But what do you make of that and where he is coming from? Obviously, Republicans got back together with him and said, whoa, are you crazy? And said, look, we got to dial this back. And he's dialed it back. Now, that might be a welcome development, but we don't know.
Yeah, Neil, you just identify what it's been like being in Washington for the last 4 years. Does a tweet make a difference? Does a tweet not make a difference? How are the members of Congress going to respond? I think we know a couple of things. One is that Nancy Pelosi is not moved by tweets. She's moved by her conference. And her moderates, she's got 30-some members who are sitting in seats that previously were occupied by Republicans. They need something to go home and campaign on. So she's feeling a little bit of pressure there. The president as well. Republicans are saying, listen, this is not just about the state and local aid that Nancy Pelosi wants to give to blue states. It's about red states that are suffering as well. And, backing out a little bit further, it's about all Americans who are really facing a very uncertain next couple of months. We're heading into the fall and winter. We know the public health situation is going to continue to be uncertain. Thus, the economic situation is going to continue to be uncertain. Without some kind of support like what we had in the spring, in the summer, we're going to see some really dangerous cliffs here. Airlines are one of them, of course, but, there's been a lot of conversation about those unemployment benefits. We saw the best numbers of job growth when those generous unemployment benefits were still in effect. So as long as the public health situation is what is dictating economic circumstances, we need policymakers to really focus in on creating certainty for employers and for workers so they can get through these next couple of months and we can start looking at what normal looks like again. We won't get there if we don't have any certainty to get through the fall and the winter.
Well, a big part of that, Gary, is the virus itself, right? The more stubborn the cases get to be. I think we just had our highest, count of cases yesterday at more than 56,000 we've seen in the better part of 2 months. So people are worried that it's escalating again in parts of New York City where they have these problematic zip codes. It's escalating again. So balance it out. How much will the virus dictate where this goes, where this market goes, too?
It'll dictate a lot, but only if we lock down again, Neil. If we lock down, that'll change the playing field for the economy and the markets. Absent that, I think the economy is getting better and the market is on its way. I think on September 28th, the market confirmed the low from that little 3-4 week correction. And I think we're going to have a big fourth quarter in spite of the election and the virus. And by the way, it's not just here. It's in many places around the globe where the numbers are picking up. So it'll all be about locking down. If we don't, and if we can, balance it out where we can stay open and deal with it, I think we'll be okay. And that's going to be the magic word, is lockdown. Hopefully we don't have to do it.
All right, guys, I want to thank you both very much.